Hello and welcome to Fox 10 Talks on this Monday. I'm Marc Martinez.
And I'm Ellen McNamara. And we are joined by Trenton Hooker today. We have a jam-packed show, and we'll get to you in just 1 second. But yeah, we're going to be talking to Trenton about a very high-profile murder case that's happening right now. We're talking about the job market, which right now is not very good, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we're also going to be talking, we're going to wrap it up later on, talking about Thanksgiving, some of the gatherings that are going on with families, and some of the things you might want to avoid if you're having family over for Thanksgiving. So we'll run that down as well. And let's start with Trenton. Trenton's our executive producer here at Fox 10, and you've been covering the Allison Feldman trial. For those who don't know, give a quick rundown about Allison in this case.
Yeah, so Allison Feldman, she is from Minnesota originally, came out to Arizona for schooling and then transferred with a job. And at her Scottsdale home, February 17th of 2015, she was last seen going into her home. 7 o'clock was about the last timestamp they have. She was alive entering the residence. And all they know is that really the next day, her boyfriend found her body in a hallway inside the home. No forced entry, but just a gruesome crime scene. She was, brutally beaten, strangled, and even sexually assaulted. So that was what the scene was left with. There's also just how the scene with full of bleach and Clorox all over. And it took quite a while to make an arrest in this case. Mark, we were talking about it just before, but 3 years later in 2018, Scottsdale Police said they were able to identify Ian Mitchum, seen right there, through the use of familial DNA, which was a groundbreaking use of that in Arizona. This is also the same year that the Golden State Killer, James D'Angelo, where he was finally caught after the 60s and 70s using familial DNA, but they actually matched it to Ian's brother, Mark, who's been in the Arizona Department of Corrections since 1992 on some child molestation charges. But once they got the match, they further specified it to Ian through the use of a DNA that was collected 3 years prior to Allison's murder in a DUI case. And the controversy there was that basically the time had run out on how long Scottsdale PD could have had that in their system. So that was challenged by the defense. And I mean, we've had a decades-long battle to get this in a courtroom. But in December of 2024, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that, yes, it can be used in this capital murder trial. So that brings us to where we were at the start of the trial last week. But the bombshell really came in court during opening statements where the defense took the position of, no, our client, even though the scene is what it is, they said, that's the quote, the scene is what it is, as far as the DNA being at the scene, his DNA, the mystery man is responsible. They're saying they named a man, we're not going to say his name, but he's a pharmacist that worked at a Walgreens that was about a mile and a half of where Allison lived. And they're pointing the blame at that guy. So I think the big watch right now in this whole case is just, we got to get through all this DNA evidence and all the forensic, the mountain of forensic evidence. But as far as the motive, that's been pretty short from prosecution. But will the pharmacist take the stand? That's kind of what we want to know.
And I mean, he looks, I'm looking, 2015 and then a different mugshot and then him. He looks very different in court than he does the mugshot that we typically had been seeing.
And Kenzie Beach covered, I believe, opening day of the trial, and she said that he was kind of like smiling and looking at the Feldman family and things like that.
Yes.
That was his demeanor in court.
Yeah, and we've been watching him, I mean, even today, like after the witnesses go and take the stand, people that knew Allison very well, her father took the stand today, as well as her boss and co-worker. It's kind of a more relaxed, jovial atmosphere with his counsel. They're talking about how it went. No, I don't know. Just being an outside observer, but looking where I've been in courtrooms for murder cases, and the defendant, usually has a little more somber tone just based on the severity of the charges and the brutality of the nature of the crime. But that doesn't seem to be the case.
DNA, we know that she was sexually assaulted. Was his DNA found like on her, in her,
on her body,
on her body.
On her body. Now, again, I have we haven't gotten to the part with the forensic evidence where necessarily it was found on her body in great detail, but as the prosecution laid out in their opening statement, it was everywhere on the scene, inside, outside the house, which is curious because, again, the responding officers say that there was no forced entry. Her boyfriend, when he came in the home, he unlocked the door, came inside. It doesn't appear like, this was a break-in gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, Mitchum's defense attorney has not created any alibi or anything like that, right? He's just basically, they're pointing the finger at someone else.
No.
They're not, they haven't said he did not do it because of this.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what's been kind of interesting. They've been talking about DNA in this kind of abstract way about how, can you even imagine how tiny these particles are and where they get everywhere? But they haven't threaded the needle on how his particles got everywhere on the crime scene. And again, they have not presented that someone else's DNA was there as well, other than what you would normally have in an investigation with people coming through. And specifically this pharmacist, they did not say his DNA was there either.
Well, and clearly, again, as we said, it just takes one juror. There needs to be some reasonable doubt. You have to convict. Beyond a reasonable doubt. So that can be difficult sometimes.
Exactly. And our legal experts that we brought in last week to talk about that with, again, the goal of the defense of trying to get a hung jury, that one person that they can get through to say, like, I don't know, but getting the pharmacist up on the stand to testify and then pleading the Fifth. I mean, just that alone to a jury hearing, I'm going to plead the Fifth Amendment, I'm not going to incriminate myself, how that could be detrimental to a prosecution's case, just having that reasonable doubt in the air. And the other expert we talked to, Judge Mel McDonald, retired Maricopa County Superior Court judge, was saying there is no way in hell the prosecution is going to let that happen in that instance. So, again, we're kind of on the clock of seeing, is that going to happen? Because he was named. Yeah.
We know that Mitchum got a DUI. Has he been in trouble with the law besides that DUI?
As far as we can tell, no. It's just that was the case that was pending in the court system. Right.
Wow.
Right.
At day 3 now, how long is this trial expected to go? I remember hearing it seems like it's going to go on for quite a while.
Yeah. Yes, so that's great questions. We talked last week with Harley Feldman, the father of Allison Feldman, and he was guesstimating that it's maybe going to take potentially weeks, if not months, just the amount of forensic evidence that they've got to go through. And then, again, with this curveball of who else are they going to call in to kind of dispute any of that? It's going to be slow trudging. And today was really that, with the prosecution working through their case in chronological order of like who was the first on the scene. Where we started, the first witness was Allison's boyfriend. And man, the 911 call, I know you both heard it. It's just so emotional there. And then he testified his recollection 10 years later. I mean, it's just all there with him. I mean, really, he's another victim in this case with what he had to go through. And then after that, it was the officers that responded to the scene and what they remember seeing matching with the boyfriend's take. And then we had Harley, the father, talk on the stand today, which I thought the curveball today was very, very interesting, that he was the impetus to get the familial DNA tested out there, with Scottsdale PD so that they could really connect the dots in this case. He was pushing with the governor, the attorney general at the time, to kind of, this is an unprecedented case with first use of it. So very, very fascinating, but he's very connected to it. And then his last exchanges with his daughter were, pretty heartbreaking. And just knowing that something's not right.
Sure.
Here,
he said she didn't return a text, which was unlike her, and
had her phone off.
Yeah, didn't answer the phone the next day. So,
correct.
Yeah, this has been a real big for this family. They've been coming out here for so many of the steps in this process to get to this trial, which the dad has been wanting for so long, obviously. But he did say, when I talked to him years ago in 2018 after Mitchum was arrested, that he was told that they may never know a motive in this case, which I don't know how important that is to him at this point, but just to not know how, the suspect targeted his daughter,
Exactly. And I mean, I'm most fascinated with those 12 jurors, with hearing that story. Is it going to be enough that we just We have a ton of forensic evidence. We have circumstantial evidence. They were talking about how Mitchum's Ford Mustang was seen kind of in the area at the time. There was also 2 bank deposits, but we have yet to hear in court if that money was any way connected to Allison. But still, again, all these circumstantial details, but why he did it, what was the motivation here? We haven't had that yet.
When I know you were following the trial today before you came in and joined us, who was on the stand? Was Harley still on the stand at that point? So
after Harley, we actually had her co-worker and boss at the medical product company. The big takeaway from that, it sounds like they had a very close working relationship with the medical products group, the employees there, and he knew it pretty well beyond, I think, just a, employee supervisor relationship. They were friends in a platonic way. But the interesting part was that in the days prior to her murder, she had asked about possibly looking into purchase a firearm. And he was asked in cross-examination, what was this? Because she was just generally fearful of her safety. Was it a specific threat? And it sounds like just a general, she was worried about it. It was something more concerning of her. There have been some news stories with, I think, some terrorist attacks, but she was very, very determined to get a firearm.
Wow.
Interesting.
And she was really up and coming with her job, and things were just going perfectly for her until this night. So
crazy.
Well,
and we were talking about timeline too. 2015. I think we have to remember also this was before the Ring camera.
Right.
This was before all of these homes. All of our homes now have equipped with pretty inexpensive security footage.
Yeah.
So really you have, the DNA. That's why DNA is going to be so important in this trial. And obviously you can send a text message or whatever back in 2015, but we just don't have that kind of video in 2015 that we do now today
you're exactly right.
to help convict someone with a crime like this.
A little bit just procedure stuff, but what the officer was talking about arriving at the scene, apparently there is a neighbor camera that was facing the direction that they wanted. Now, we haven't seen the video yet or heard that, hey, if they got the tape.
Like what
but
the quality
there
would
was a
be
camera,
like.
right.
Yeah.
And what did it look like? I don't know.
Interesting.
Well, if people want to watch the trial, it's on streaming on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, live right now. We're still going.
We'll let you get back to it. And we've got more Fox 10 Talks coming up. We're going to be talking about the job search right now in the job markets and the people who are just entering it right now, college graduates. It is tough out there, really tough.
They're saying it's kind of like the Great Recession, honestly, right now. People looking for a job. And so we're going to talk to a job expert about that when we come back. Welcome back, everyone, on this Monday to Fox 10 Talks. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. In fact, one of the hot topics we've been really hearing a lot about lately is people who are searching for jobs, people who are recent college graduates, who are trying to get into the job market right now. It's really tough. So we are joined by our expert here, David Cathey, who is what is your title, Dave, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'm a partner at Unity Search Group. We're a recruiting firm.
Awesome. So as far as just like the job market in general, what would you say? Maybe a couple words about the job market. Someone trying to get a job right now, someone entering the job market for the first time.
Yeah, overall, I would say that there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. And when companies face uncertainty, they kind of hit a pause button. They hold because they're somewhat afraid to make a move. And there's a lot of things that happened this year that have caused uncertainty. I mean, we just came off of a government shutdown. You've got tariff, you've got price sensitivity and inflation. And so from a job perspective, the market has been very slow. If I am looking for a job, I have to be proactive. I really have to start looking at my network. Even if I'm graduating school, a lot of kids who graduate school, if they're not getting a job from an online career fair, you've got your parents, you've got your friends, you've got siblings that you need to start networking with, as well as your friends, and staying diligent and connecting with people at other various locations, whether it's a different career fair or a recruiting firm.
Dave, if you're someone who has a job right now, you maybe don't love it, but you've got a job and you're thinking about either switching careers or going to another employer, is now not the time to do that? You just kind of hold off on that and kind of keep doing what you're doing?
Well, we do see a slowdown in job activity from a career standpoint at this time of year. Interestingly, that may sound conflicting because we've got seasonality hiring that's happening right now for the holiday season. And that's actually going to be at an all-time low as well, surprisingly. Wow. However, if we move past this season of holiday hiring, that's when we'll start seeing the job market pick up. It always seems to pick up middle of Q1. So my expectation is middle of Q1 2026, we'll see the job market pick up. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply or continue to look, because you may find that diamond in the rough. You just don't know when you are going to be the exact candidate for the exact job that you're looking for.
When people are applying online, and we've heard now about this the ghost job postings that are out there right now, where basically a company is putting out a post and the job, frankly, doesn't exist. So, I mean, is it better to, as you said, kind of network and have those face-to-face discussions rather than hopping online and just kind of throwing your resume out there? I mean, I would be curious also, how many people actually get a job from one of those online postings versus, an interaction, a face-to-face interaction?
Yeah, great question. I'm always going to default to networking. I'm always going to default to using your family and your friends. And if you are more seasoned in your career and you've done a great job in your career, calling the people that you worked with, saying, hey, I'm available. Hey, I'm confidentially looking for a new opportunity. So if you've done well, you should use that network. To me, that's always going to be opportunity number one, followed by using a resource such as a recruiting firm. And then in the last place, I've always put a job board. That's not to mean that in certain seasons of your career, a job board could be very, very effective. So I think it's a good tool to use, but it's not something that you're putting a lot of stock into. It's just something to keep your eyes open on the marketplace. As you mentioned job ghosting earlier. And what's interesting is that, job ghosting, there's been some things where people say, oh, this is another company that has posted a job that has no intention of filling it. And to a degree, there are some jobs out there that may not get filled immediately. And there are some decisions that's driving that, such as, I know that a big project's going to be coming up next quarter, and I got to start filling a pipeline. So I'm going to go ahead and put a job posting on there. I plan to hire that person next quarter, or perhaps a job was frozen due to budget cuts, or, they're constantly posting a job because for whatever reason this position has a high turnover. What has happened recently is job ghosting has increased. And so for the last 10 years prior to COVID, there was a 10% gap. And that 10% gap was, we have so many openings and we're only going to hire so many people. And there was a 10% gap between those two. That 10% gap has increased to a 30% gap. And that extra 20% that's happened post-COVID, that's what's concerning. Why is there a job ghosting economy right now? That's the question that we all want to know, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, and then for students who are in college right now and about to graduate, I'm sure they're looking at this with so much uncertainty surrounding it. As you mentioned, maybe they don't even have the networking network set up yet. I don't know what the prospect is for them at this point, especially if you're getting something that's not in your, you don't have a degree in what the job that's available.
Yeah, and you even brought this up too. I was talking to Mark, actually, David, not too long ago, and we were talking about how, what if you went to college for a job that now is going to or has already been replaced by AI.
In that 4 years that you were there.
That'd be horrible.
Yeah. So we've actually seen a couple of things happen from that. Number one, you have people going back to school to further their education, some type of MBA, or they're doing some career complete transition into something else.
Wow.
Because they just can't find the job that they're looking for. And the other thing that we've seen a lot, and this has been over the past 3 years, has been an increase in the trades. And, I just don't think AI is going to replace my plumber or my electrician. I just don't think that's going to happen, at least not within the next couple of years.
Right. I think a lot of us wish if we had done it all over, maybe we'd learned one of those trades. David, Cathey, Thank you so much for joining us at the State of the Job Market. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You bet. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, David.
Yeah. He mentioned people going back to school. Now you've got more student loans,
totally.
that you got to pay off somehow. And
right.
Boy, what a scary time. I mean, we've been through it before, but I think with the pace of AI, that is throwing a big wrench into things too.
Yeah. And I know too, like with the Great Recession, there were a lot of people who just tried to stay in school for kind of as long as possible,
push it off.
because that was kind of the way to try to avoid the job market temporarily.
Push it off for a little while, and at least you've got something certain, you got some place to be every day.
That's true.
So,
so we of course have Thanksgiving coming up next week. Are you ready for it?
No, I'm going to be working, so I have it pretty easy. They're going to provide us with food here at the station. So I don't mind that at all. I don't have to hassle with any of the traveling or we're making the dinner.
That's good. Yes, I'm off, which I'm so excited about. But we're kind of doing like a big potluck kind of a thing, big family gathering. And of course, I know that a lot of you all are going to be having a big family gathering too.
Yeah.
And something I feel like we talk about it every year, but we're talking about what you should be avoiding at the Thanksgiving table, especially if you have that big gathering, because you're going to have a lot of different diverse viewpoints at that table. And if you mix a little alcohol in there, you never know what someone's going to say.
Yeah, let's bring in our guest, Jonathan Thorp. Jonathan, if you could tell us what your title is there for all the viewers out there.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. I'm currently the CEO of Quantum Connections here in Dallas, Texas.
So tell us what some of the biggest things that happen on Thanksgiving that can kind of make the day go a little bit haywire.
Yeah, for sure. I understand the issue. I understand it's been on the news a lot this week and certainly on the web. I get it. There's a lot of energy around the holiday, and if you look at why it's happening, it shouldn't be any mystery. The amount of polarization that's going on in the world is extreme, right? In terms of politics, people are either representing themselves as either 100% liberal or 0% conservative or vice versa. Very few moderates are making the news. The other thing is attention patterns. Our attention patterns have also changed dramatically. They've shortened, and now we reward reactivity and not reflection. And I think the third thing to keep in mind for everybody going to these events is we're already at a very heightened emotional state with the holidays. We've got great expectations. We want them to be perfect, memorable. People are traveling and spending a lot of money to get together. So there's a ton of energy people take into these events to start with.
And sometimes I think people already go into it with an expectation of like, what's going to happen, which kind of sets the tone for something,
Right.
You're kind of on edge.
Yeah, especially if that crazy uncle or oh God, crazy Aunt Mary's going to say something. It's like you already expect it, so you're already getting ready.
Yeah, I think it's like a sense of dread. Everyone's got the crazy Uncle Harold, and everyone's just waiting for him to open his mouth and throw the hand grenade or the bag of rattlesnakes. And people get anxiety over coming to these events for that very reason.
Yeah, and it almost seems like anything could set someone off, even if you're really kind of trying to tiptoe around sensitive topics. Sometimes if somebody's, especially you mentioned, Ellen, if somebody starts drinking a little bit, it may come out. Maybe you got to have an exit strategy to get out of the gathering. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of your advice just to avoid politics altogether? I mean, I guess if you all are all on the same page, okay, whatever. But at a very diverse, large Thanksgiving gathering, I mean, is that just kind of maybe you should just avoid it altogether?
I suppose you could. Nothing wrong with that. And I think that's probably better angels if you try to avoid politics. And I've even heard some people talk about, coming up with a snarky one-liner to kind of diffuse it by, if someone makes a political comment to say, are you really okay? Or to say, well, that's one way to look at it. Here's what I would do instead. Right? I don't want to minimize somebody's feelings. So here's what I do. Number one, understand the situation. It's going to be high energy. Number two, shift from reacting to listening and take a breath. And actually, before you are in a race to respond, take a moment and actually cultivate what that person is thinking and why. So listen first. And then the second thing I do is actually share the experiences behind what they're feeling, right? It's not a contest. You're not trying to win one more person at the Thanksgiving dinner to think like you. I think what you'd really want to do is come away with one more person that you understand better, even if they think differently than you. So I think that's the shift I'd make.
Wow. Jonathan, thank you for joining us. We appreciate that. Even though it was a brief time, we learned some things here. And I think that last bit of advice there is great advice. And I hope people listen to that and use that this Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And hope that you have a great Thanksgiving too with your family.
Yeah. Thanks much. To you as well.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. So I kind of don't mind that I have to work this year because I won't have to worry about any of that. It's kind of nice. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think my plan is I was like, well, I'm going to go get another glass of wine. Excuse me.
Yeah, take a little time out. That always helps. A little me time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I know we're talking turkey already, but it's right around the corner.
It sure is. And we'll actually see you tomorrow, Tuesday
we'll be back here
at 3:00.
Yep. Good night. Or goodbye. Good night.